So I like to drink with my old man. He have 3 daughters and 1 son. He told this story to me and my little sister. She's only 1 year younger than me. My oldest sister lived with her mom and stepfather at the time it happened. One day when she was 12, she called my dad in tears and told him about how she was molested by her stepdad. She just wanted to tell someone who would believe her because her mother at the time didn't. My dad was about to get his stuff to beat her stepdad's ass. But my sister told him that she didn't want him to do anything since she didn't want him in jail. So my dad quickly contacted some old friends and gangs and told them everything. He was furious. My oldest sister's stepdad was beaten so bad he barely recovered. Her stepdad and mom separated not long after. My dad made sure to call his work and tell them everything. Got him fired. My dad made sure to know everything about this man so he could ruin his life as much as possible. When he got to a new city and my dad got word of it, he made sure he got another extra beating or 2. This went on 4 years on end. My dad was told a few years ago that he sits in a wheelchair now and can barely do anything by himself. He's still not satisfied. If it were up to him, he would be dead. No one hurts his children. My oldest sister haven't really had any real relationship and lives with her best friend and a cat. She's 32 now. She's happy to this day and I finally get to meet who she is. She reminds me a lot of our dad. Same humor, same behavior, a lot of the good stuff, and she looks out for family. She's such a great person. I'm not sure if the story is allowed. If not, just remove it. I'm posting it here since another subreddit removed it. Edit. To those who says it seems fake, we were all drunk, and my dad has a tendency to overshare his personal experiences when he's wasted. It's not exactly his words, but it's the basis of the story. My older sister was a well-behaved child. She wasn't scared of anything, I was told, and whenever my dad came to pick her up, she looked so scared and just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Both her and my dad said this. My oldest sister doesn't like to share that kind of stuff. I get why. In 1320, King Alfonso of Portugal decided to get his son, Peter, to marry the daughter of Juan Manuel, Prince of Vilhena, Constanza, in order to make an alliance. However, Peter fell in love with another woman, Inés de Castro. Constanza died in 1345. While Peter and Inés were still getting busy, Alfonso banished Inés, then had her assassinated. He sent 3 men after her, and she was decapitated in front of her kid. You can bet that Peter didn't take to kindly when he found out that his dad killed the love of his life because his dad didn't like Inés. Peter revolted, but failed, but gained the throne in 1357 after Alfonso died. Peter then tracked down 2 of the assassins, tried them, and killed them both by ripping out the assassins' hearts with his own bare hands. I can't make that up. He ripped out their hearts with his hands. Yeah. Stop posting about history. History posts. Really well, the mods allow it. Ever wondered why they haven't been taken down? A mod even made a few historical posts. There is a *FLAIR* for these historical posts. If you want, complain to the mods. But I doubt they will take you seriously. Not to mention, a majority of the sub actually find these posts interesting. But for everyone else, I hope you enjoy this post. Have a nice day. So this is a short story. This happened 9 years ago, so it is a very foggy memory. So, my dad abused my mom and quenched her with alcohol. So, the revenge was my mom dumped him. But she didn't stop there. She took all of the money, me and my brother, our only car, and kicked him out of the house. His family found out what he did, and he was locked up for 4 years. Nobody bailed him out. When he got out of jail, he was homeless. In the middle of Arizona. Triple digits. For anybody wondering, my mom is now engaged to a very nice man who lives with us. I'm visiting his parents right now. For context, this story takes place long before I was born. My father told me these stories many times when I was younger. Another context, my father wasn't a witness, but his friends told him the story so detailed since they were there when it happened, that it almost sounds like the *WAS asterisk there. So, here we go. TL. Doctor at the bottom. Cast. Cage. Asshole who verbally and physically attacked someone with mental health issues. Daniel. Poor guy who's mentally challenged. I'll explain it better. Vin Johnson. Daniel's big brother. The name will make sense when I explain it. Story. Okay, I don't know which year this took place as my dad never specified that, but I know this took place when he was in his late teens and or early 20s. Okay, there was this guy, Daniel, who was, well, mentally challenged. When I say I mean, occasionally he was able to successfully understand the situation around him, but the majority of the time, he couldn't. Because of that, his friend group constantly protected him, not out of pity, but because they genuinely cared about him. However, this one jerkface, Cage, decided he didn't like Daniel's mental issues, and decided to poke fun at him. Note, they were at a bar, and Cage had a large group of friends with him, who all forced Daniel's friends to back off, since they were taller, and thus, were intimidated, although they kept close just in case things went south, and they assumed a verbal assault would be the furthest that this would go. How wrong they were. Cage decides to poke fun at Daniel, making stupid noises at him, purposely talking all wrong and broken as a way to mock his difficulty to speak due to his issues, and well, everything else you can imagine. But like I said, Daniel, most of the time, wasn't able to pick up the things around him, and thus, wasn't fazed by the insults, since he couldn't really understand what was going on. This seemingly upset Cage, who then resulted in beating the ever-loving hell out of Daniel. Daniel's friends immediately tossed aside their intimidation of Cage's friends and tried to stop him, but were restrained by Cage's friends, while poor Daniel was defenseless against Cage's beating. 2 minutes later, Cage stops the beating, laughs at Daniel and kicks his foot one last time before leaving with his buddies. Daniel's friends take him away to a hospital and inform his parents and older brother. Daniel's brother, we'll call him Vin Johnson. Why? Because, if you take Vin Diesel and Wayne Johnson, fuse them together, that's Daniel's brother. That's how buffed and jacked he was. He went full Papa Bear mode, seeing red at his beloved little brother being beaten to a pulp, and demanded to know who did it, and Daniel's friends informed him, and Vin immediately returned to the bar a day later, and from I was told, literally kicked the door open and loudly and aggressively asked, I was told this part so many times, and the words are quite exact, *WHO the FCK beat my brother up yesterday? Which one of you FCK arrested it? Start talking or I'll tear this place piece by piece. Despite Vin's Hulk-like stature and Darth Vader levels of deep voice, Cage wasn't scared and smugly walked up and told him I did. What you gonna do about it? Without less than a 0,00000000001 second later, Vin punched Cage so hard he actually flew back a couple feet. Vin stomped over to Cage and continued to beat him up, as in, he stood above a fallen Cage and rained punches like those you see in movies. Then, he picked him up and threw him into a wall before grabbing him by the hair and smashing his head onto the pool table several times. Finally, Cage's friends interfered, although they were all beaten up by Vin. Seriously, it was like 5v1, yet Vin whooped their asses. According to my father, whose friends were there and were watching the whole thing, Vin took two of Cage's friends, lifted them both up with one hand each by the throat and smashed their heads onto a glass portrait, knocking them both out instantly and leaving them with several cuts from the falling glass. Then, Vin finished off Cage's remaining friends, before returning his attention to Cage himself, who was literally dragging himself across the floor in fear, and as Vin grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, Cage begged him to stop, but Vin sarcastically asked him if his little brother Daniel also begged him to stop, and Vin continued to beat the shit out of him, and even after Cage was knocked out, with his face covered in blood and a few teeth knocked out, Vin continued to beat him up, and was only stopped by Daniel's friends, who told him to stop otherwise he could kill him, and Vin actually said, I still don't see the problem. The bartender was indeed watching, but knowing what a pose Cage was, decided not to do anything. Yup. Cage was that much of an asshole, but since he paid for beer almost every day, the bartender wouldn't throw him out. Then, Vin decided to end the beating by picking the now unconscious Cage one last time and threw him across the bar, and Cage's head smashed against a jukebox or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was something related to music. Vin and Daniel's friends walked away, and the bartender called an ambulance for Cage and his friends. A few weeks later, Daniel was dispatched from the hospital and only suffered bruises, but was overall alright. When Daniel's friends returned to the bar sometime later, they asked the bartender if he knew what happened to Cage and his friends, and the bartender actually knew almost everything that happened. Apparently, Cage's parents decided to find out what actually happened. Since one of Cage's eyes had suffered so much damage, he actually became blind in one eye and asked for security footage, but the bar didn't have cameras, so there was nothing. However, the bartender actually came clean and told them all that happened and what Cage had done to deserve the beating. Surprisingly, the parents weren't entitled, what a miracle, and understood the situation and asked the bartender to tell Vin and his family they were sorry for their son's behavior and promised to update him on Cage's future to inform Daniel's family about Cage's punishment. Then, according to the bartender, Cage's parents refused to take him back home and literally threw him out on the streets, telling him that if he was willing to beat a defenseless person, then he too shall become defenseless without support from his family. Cage then became homeless and his friends abandoned him and became a loner homeless. One day, Vin actually passed by Cage while driving his car, and since it had been a day after a rainy day, there were water puddles around, and Vin purposely drove over one, which splashed over to Cage, making completely soaked in dirty water. Cage began cursing at him, but as Vin slowed down and looked over, Cage recognized Vin and legged it. Not too long after, Cage was arrested for trying to steal food off a local market, and his parents actually further added to his sentence over the beating he gave to Daniel, making Cage spend some good quality time in jail. After getting out, however, Cage was finally allowed to go back home, but was never allowed to go out without his parents again, until he got himself a job, a house of his own, and a life of his own. If you enjoyed the stories, slap the like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.